guys, welcome to the discussion portion of the playthrough. Joining me is the global guru, Zach. How you doing tonight?
I'm great.
Yep. Our fully sworn-in lawyer, Dr. J. How you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
And then our painting aficionado, and one of the reasons why I hate playing Jared's version of this game, because I don't play the game. I try to just get all the cool figures on the board, Russ. So if you guys haven't watched yet and you want to learn how to play, make sure you click on the link above. That will show you to Jared's how-to on how to play Blood Rage. And believe me, he knows how to play this game.
Do I? I don't win that often.
You won last time.
I know how to make people salty while I play, but I don't.
Did you win last time? That's a win for you,
won.
though.
Yeah.
If you can disrupt it, you've won, right?
I think.
If you've disrupted the game for someone, you've won in your mind.
No, it really comes down to if Zach's playing, Jared will win. We know that because Jared will go into Yggdrasil and nobody will counter him.
The last time we played with Zach, he ended up winning.
Yeah, I won that. Remember? Because of Valhalla, and I got all those points.
Yeah. So, we're talking about Blood Rage, made by this guy named Eric Lang and CMON.
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
I think they're new, right?
Yeah, something like that.
In 2012.
They've been making a splash on Kickstarter lately, I hear.
We were looking
at a name for themselves.
we were looking at Kickstarter for this, and it was 2015, and it was only $75, and it came with a lot.
And it didn't raise all that much money, and maybe because it was
$900.
$75 instead of typical $150 that it seemed on.
Well, that would have been insane back in the days. Like, because I'll tell you a little bit of trivia. First board game Kickstarter I ever backed was from CMON when they were still called Cool Mini or Not for the first zombie side. And like, as Russ, you as a painter, you can tell the difference between zombie side and some of their newer games just in terms of the miniatures and quality, right?
Yeah, you notice actually with every new CMON game, they get a little bit better. I mean, you can see the spears for Blood Rage. They're not.
Yeah, these guys are all bent, and
you can use an air dryer or a hair dryer to straighten them out a little bit, but they never really are perfect. So
the detail is pretty awesome. They just getting better and better.
Yeah,
but it's always premium stuff that you're getting at the time.
Yeah. So like they set a bar and they keep pushing it higher and higher. So that's a good thing. So talking about this game,
and now we got a 12-foot miniature coming.
Yeah. Good luck painting that.
12 foot.
I really just want a picture of you trying to paint it, and you just have one of those like rollers just going at it.
You need to attach a basketball hoop to that Cthulhu miniature, and then just stick it in your driveway, and you're good to go, right?
But so, what were your guys' initial thoughts in this game? Because I can tell you that the first time I played this, it was kind of early on when I was still trying to get into some of the heavier board games playing, that this one just clicked because it took mechanics from other games that I knew how to play and put them all together. And I was like, I love this. Just a little bit of drafting, a little bit of area control, worker placement-ish type things. And I was like, I get it. I get all of it.
Yeah. The first time I played this game was actually 3 years ago at SaltCon, our local board game convention. And I fell in love with it. And I wasn't as deep into the hobby as I am now, but it just really it was a hot game for a reason back then, because it had kind of a new concepts. The miniatures were really cool. It felt like a really high quality game. And it's not hard. It's a very simple game that is really easy to pick up. And plus, I mean, it's just beating the snot out of your friends the whole time, which really spoke to me. So
I was kind of late coming into the board game group with you guys, and this was the first game I played with you. And I was very intimidated at first, but as soon as we started drafting, I fell in love. And then using the miniatures, I'm like, oh man, miniatures. This is my first game.
That was the unpainted set too.
That was before they looked like this.
And that was before they looked like this. And I mean, I don't know if it was because it was one of my entry-level games into the somewhat heavier board game industry, but I fell in love with it. Like, just all of the different mechanics. I love drafting. I love worker placement, which it has a little bit of. And I don't super love confrontation, area control type games, but this has just enough where it doesn't turn me off, but just enough where I think a lot of people that do like those things, it helps them.
Yeah, so one of the interesting mechanics about the game is it's got the glory aspect where if you lose in battle, you can still get glory points, or if your guys die in battle gloriously, you can still benefit from it. And so one person can have a strategy where they want to win all their fights, and another person can have a strategy where they want to lose all their fights, and they can still be pretty close. So I think that kind of takes away from the negative feelings that sometimes surround just straight up combat games.
Well, you never feel
he
like you're
won.
out.
Yeah,
Well, even if you're
exactly.
losing the combat, it's like, well, I can get these quests and come back and still
That
win.
feels like
Yeah.
one of the good things about Eric Lang as a designer. To me, though, why I like him so much is that he has different avenues to win, where it's not just about winning. You can kind of have that negative. Most of his games have that. What would be a negative can turn into a positive. Then the killing your characters. This game is accused of having some broken mechanics, certain strategies that win, but I haven't noticed it. I know I get frustrated when you get into Yggdrasil and you just take it over and nobody else wants to counter. But I typically play it where I do take all the cards that you get benefit from dying. This last time I
The
played, where I
KO
was
king going for the KOs.
this last time I played a lot more aggressive, where I was just trying to win battles, and that I really enjoyed that play
Yeah.
of it.
Some people say there's a lot of broken cards, and the only card that I really think is broken is in the Third Age. There's a card that doubles your points from quests that you end up completing.
Yeah, I like that one.
I like to.
That's the comeback one.
Yeah,
for
I got
sure.
38
That's the one I
points
use
in
to
the
come
last
back
You
round.
can
again.
net way more points than you probably should be able to.
Yeah.
Like they should put a
Yeah.
cap on how many points it can give
I had
you.
38 in the last round.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. But other than that, like there are strong cards in the game, a lot of really strong cards that can feel broken, but they're all kind of that way.
You got to set up for a lot of those ones, though.
Yeah.
And things have to go right.
But you had a really good combo that I thought was really nasty. You got where you could pay 2 rage to redo
Oh yeah, you can pay
Yeah.
2 rage to repillage an area.
and then
as one
you
of the
were in
clan
Yggdrasil,
upgrades.
so you got
No,
all your
No, so I was in what area was it? Like this one up here with only 3 spots in it, and I had all the spots in it. And so I was just paying 2 rage to repillage, and I had an upgrade that when I successfully pillaged,
yeah.
I would raise all of my clan stats instead of just
Yes.
one. And so,
you got to do it twice?
The last
All
round
of
of the
them
game, I
twice?
just bumped my clan stats up all the way and
so
maxed
he got
them out.
60 at the
So
end
I got
of the
60
game.
points. So, and the thing is, when you play the game more often, you're gonna recognize those clan upgrades on other people, and you're gonna say, okay, this is what I got to do to stop him. This is what I got to do to stop that person over there.
Yeah.
And
It was an interesting play because I think you kind of went nice on me and Kevin because we really
We were a little
messed-
rusty from
we
playing
really
this game.
messed up at the
Yeah.
beginning, and
yeah, the first round I was in a clear position of strength, and they were not doing well. And we play with the expansions. We play with the Mystics, which
I
adds
love the
extra units,
Mystics.
and we play with the Gods of Asgard.
Yeah, that's a good thing to mention too, right? The
Yeah.
expansions, they give you kind of more clans and more of the monsters and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's not one of those like you must have to.
Yeah,
to-
no,
unless you have a 5th player that wants to
Yeah,
play.
unless
Then it's
you
a
have-
must-have
yeah.
to buy the 5th player
Yeah.
version.
Yeah.
But if you're playing, with 4 or just
and if this is
3,
anything like what Chaos in the Old World, make sure you get that 5th player expansion now.
yeah,
It would
Russ,
be hard
Those
to
are
get
always
that
the
for
hardest
later.
ones. Yeah.
come on, Russ, just shell out the money so we can play
So-
Chaos in the Old World.
So what one of the Mystics does is when it would be destroyed in combat, instead it can move to an adjacent area
good.
that's on the
I love that
outside.
card.
And so what happened was I had a card that if I lost a battle, then I would steal rage from the person who won. So I would go into an area with my Mystic. I would if whoever was there didn't try to pillage, I would initiate a pillage and intentionally lose the fight. So I would steal their rage, and then I would move my Mystic to another area, and then on my next round I would redo the pillage again and just steal everyone's rage. And it does give them glory points because they're winning the battle every time. But the whole first round, I mean, we didn't have that much rage to start with, and so I ended up bankrupting Russ
Me.
and Kevin
Before I could play Quest or anything.
at the very beginning of the game. Yeah, they didn't play any quests or anything, and so I kind of eased up.
Well,
on
one
the
thing
later rounds a little bit.
One thing about this game is if there's an experienced player and know the cards really well, they would have an upper hand, especially on new players or rusty players or less experienced. They could have
and
an
that's
advantage
just the nature
there.
of a drafting game.
This definitely feels like the more you play it, you'll have strategies. I know
It evolves.
every
The
time
game
I
evolves.
play, I kind of had the same strategy. This time, I was a lot more aggressive. So I usually like the mystics that you had, where you take away. But I had the mystics where I can bounce out one of my opponent's characters.
Yeah, you can
So it
kill
was
one
a
of your
lot
opponent's
more
characters.
aggressive, and I went for Yggdrasil right away, and oh man, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's been my strategy in the past, is usually go into Yggdrasil, pillage it, and then just kind of keep your forces in there, so when the next round starts, you can instantly pillage it again and take advantage of bumping up all your clan stats and really take the lead on the board. And that's caused Russ a lot of stress in the past, especially when we play with people who don't want to challenge.
It's like, don't leave
Yggdrasil.
me in here just to do it myself.
Yeah, so Russ basically feels like either we can let Jared win this game, or I can put myself on the chopping block and try to go in and win.
And I feel like I'm like trying to talk everybody into like,
Yep.
come with me. Let's just stop him. And it never.
Some of us just want to do our own thing.
Yeah,
I know,
Play it
it's
a
so
little bit like a
you know
Euro
what
game.
usually happens
Yeah.
is because I usually end up getting the cards where like you get extra points if you release somebody from Valhalla or anytime they like remove from the board, and there are a lot easier avenues for me to like mass destroy my guys at once. Where I'll just go do that instead.
It's also tempting to draft monsters, but I learned early after my first or second play that you have to make sure you have the
glory,
rage,
yeah, the rage
in
to
order
do
to
it.
do the monsters, or the
Absolutely.
monsters are a waste.
Yeah, because the monsters are expensive to
Oh no,
upgrade.
sir! They're not a waste when they're all sexy on the board, just showing off.
So
You have to. They're so expensive to get out there.
yeah, like the fire giant, he's 4 rage just to put him out one time, and then if he dies and you want to put him out again later, it's 4 more rage. And so
You better get full
I mean,
use out of him.
if you only get a couple of rage points at the end of your first round, what does that put you at? 8. That's half your rage just to put him on the board. That's a big sacrifice.
See, I think I've become a fan of the dwarf and the dark elf because they're cheaper and they can
The
help
dark
take
elf,
care of.
the dark elf and the Volar Witch are 2 of my favorites because they get bonuses for being in Yggdrasil.
Yeah.
But there have been actually games that I've played where I've taken advantage of the Valkyrie, and what she does is anytime that a unit is destroyed in battle with her, you get 2 extra glory points. And so there have been games where I've actually used her and just gone and just drafted the heavy attack cards and gone around and crushed all the fights. And every time someone does something, go in and challenge it, and then you get glory points for each unit you destroy. And so you really have to, if you're picking monsters, you have to pick monsters that fit your strategy. Except for the dwarf and the soldier of hell, they're free to invade, so there's really no and to upgrade. So there's really no downside to taking them.
So, what if you're a new player? What clan stats do you want to go for first?
I think rage,
Rage is the
then
biggest one.
horns, and then axes last.
See, so I focused a little bit more on axes this last time because I was fighting. So I think it depends on what strategy you're
Yeah,
going for.
sure.
Depends
So
on
if
what
you have
cards you're given and
if
want
you
to
have
go.
stronger characters, I like axes. You definitely need rage. Like I think that's the first clan stat you've got to upgrade, or if you go
You're in
for the
trouble.
other
Yeah.
stuff, like you're not going to have the rage to put more characters on for horns.
See, and that's not necessarily true because there are upgrades that will allow you to, like for instance, there's one. Anytime you invade with a character, you can invade with a warrior for free. And so if you don't have a bunch of rage, but you have those, then you kind of can put your units out more cheaply, I guess, or it costs less to put them out. And then you could focus more on bumping up your axes and your horns or your axes specifically, so that you could get a lot of points by winning in fights. But again, it really depends on what the synergy is with your clan upgrades and stuff. I think there's a way to make it work, but if you don't happen to get that card and maybe one other card, you really do want rage. At some point, you're going to need more rage. And the tokens on the board, there's more rage than anything else.
But then, so I've
makes
gone.
sense.
I've also gone games where I've gone. Oh, I need rage, and then I get rage up, and I don't worry about the rest. And then I have a plethora of rage that I can't use.
Right, because like you
I
have
can't
too
use
many guys on the
horns.
board and
Right.
you don't have enough horns to do it. Yeah, and what's interesting too is as you go through the game, areas are going to get destroyed in Ragnarok, and so the map shrinks, and you realize that sometimes if you max out your rage at the end of the game, you can't use it all because there's nowhere left to pillage. You can't put any more guys on the board. Really, all you can do is move them around maybe, and so the way that the board shrinks, it really limits how much you can use your rage in the last round of the game.
I've really started to kind of lean toward axes for points, but I think that's because how I'm playing it lately. Where
He's turning into an aggro player.
well, if I'm
You
dying,
changed, Russ. You changed.
if I'm dying where I don't care about my characters dying, then axes really isn't a great asset. But if
Right.
you're trying to win battles, which kind of sounds weird because you think you'd want to win battles, but if you're trying to win battles, and you can really get a lot of points early.
Yeah, and see that with the Valkyrie, you can get a ton of points. Like I remember there was one game that I was playing where I had the Valkyrie in Yggdrasil with the Dark Elf and a bunch of units, and or someone else had tried to pillage Yggdrasil, and I moved everything in, you know. And what ended up happening was someone ended up playing the card that you destroy. Every player destroys all but one of their figures before you calculate the strength. And so I destroyed all of my figures except for the Valkyrie, and I ended up playing like a 6 on the card, and so I ended up winning, and it get 2 glory points for every single unit of mine and theirs that got destroyed. It was like a 26 point score. It was pretty gross.
Yep, and I'd like to mention this game came out before PUBG and Fortnite took the shrinking map idea. You know, somebody's probably like, they took that from Fortnite. Nope, kids. There was life before Fortnite.
That's right.
So while we're talking about this, you know this game inside and out, but how do you rate the rule book?
The rule book, probably like a 7 to 8 out of 10, maybe like a 7.5. It suffers from the same thing that most CMON rule books kind of suffer from, and that's just it can be hard to find things every once in a while. It's pretty intuitive if you follow the board, though. It goes through what each of the phases are, and the rule book kind of goes along with that. I can't stand rule books that don't have indexes, and it might have a little one. I don't remember.
The player
actually,
cards help
but
a lot too.
Yeah.
They've got all the different
Yeah,
phases.
that's what I like about having it. Like one of my things that I've noticed with board games now, I'm so peculiar. If they don't give you player aids, it kind of bugs me these days.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be that guy who's asking, okay, so what do I do now?
Yeah. I didn't actually learn this game out of the rule book. Somebody taught it to me, and so I only use the rule book for reference purposes. So for reference purposes, it's not amazing. It might be pretty good for learning the game right out of the rule book.
There's not a lot. It seems to me like it's pretty clear cut. This is not a game where we need to constantly go to the rule book and say, well, what's this interaction? Like
Which is
it's
crazy
pretty
because there's so
smooth.
many different interactions.
Right.
But yeah,
And
I don't think
virtually
we've really
all
had
of
any
all
big
the rules
questions.
are on the cards or on the player boards. Like all your actions are explained at the bottom of the player board here. What each of the units and stuff does and each of the upgrades does is clearly stated on the cards. So there's not a whole lot that you need to go to the rule book for.
Which makes this such a great game, and I tend to lean toward really great games have that simplicity with complexity, but it's really smooth, has great table presence. There's tons of different avenues to win. We've talked about that, and it's a drafting game, so really it comes down to what cards you get. You need to be flexible and kind of adjust. I think if you are dead set on always playing the same, especially if you play with the same people, then they're going to know how to counter. I think it's you just got to adjust to what cards you get and kind of go with it.
Well, like that strategy that I was using at the beginning of the last game, there's a really good way to counter it, and it's just lose the fight. Because when you do a fight and somebody plays and you play battle cards, whoever wins the fight loses their card. And because I'd never lost a fight, I got to keep that card the whole time. So you kind of have to set it up where that person wins the fight and you lose the fight so that they get rid of their card. And I've done that before in the past when we've been playing where I'm like, I don't want that card in the game anymore.
Yeah.
So I intentionally lose a fight. But yeah, there's really a lot of strategies and ways to counter them, and it's one of the things I really like. Like you said, table presence is really nice. It's not a table hog. I mean, if we
this
look
is
at
probably
here,
one of our smaller
it's
games
one of the
we
smaller
featured on the
games,
show
yeah.
already.
And playtime is really pretty short.
Yeah,
For
Especially
how,
if people know what's going on. Like, it's
Oh, yeah.
quick.
Yeah,
For
like when
how-
we were playing, I was like, oh, we're already done?
yeah, for how
like-
epic it looks, I think we play a typical game in probably about an hour. And if it takes longer than that, it's not much longer at all.
That's what I actually like about just having these 3 different ages for the game is like once you're done with that 3rd age, it ends. I mean, like I love playing games with you guys, but you got to admit some of our games may have stretched a little too far.
Oh, yeah.
And we want to get more games in,
Yeah,
right?
you know,
can play
so
more, yeah.
That's why I'm like, let's get this out. We're ready, good to go.
I mean, it's a typical Eric Lang game, so there might be some salt that comes with it. We were going to
it
play
can
it
be,
back
yeah.
to back the other night. And decided,
Russell's like, no, I don't think we will.
I don't know about it. So Zach, I want to ask. So, like, I know you love doing the drafting portion of
Yeah.
this, but you do have that mechanic where the board's getting smaller and smaller and forcing confrontation. As a person, like you mentioned that you're not a big fan of that. Like, does this seem like a little too forced for your liking, or how do you like about that confrontation where you can't quite avoid it?
I think they did the perfect thing for people like me is make it a win condition where winning the battles doesn't necessarily win you the game. I've won a game by dying the most and getting the most in and out of Valhalla. So it kind of gives you opportunities to play more strategically and not just focus on the battle where you can, if that's not your forte, you don't love certain things like that, you don't have to focus on it if you don't want to. But if you feel in the mood, you want to go that route, because sometimes you kind of have to go the way the cards are drafted.
Yeah.
And if you get those certain cards where you need to be battle heavy, get ready to do that. Otherwise, you don't have to.
There's also a strategy where there's cards in the game that anytime one of your ships gets destroyed, you get a bunch of points for it. And if you get that in the sea monster, I've seen people come close to winning games where all they do is put ships out and get them destroyed.
I think my first game, that's all I
That's all you did was just put ships out.
It's almost like, are you even playing the same game we are?
Nope, I was just killing my guy.
Yeah, it really is. It's a lot of different games in one.
with the Valhalla and Ragnarok
Yeah.
and the whole like.
Yeah. One of the great things that I like about it is the Ragnarok token moves around depending on the areas on that board, and when it goes off, all the units in that area get destroyed, and the players who had units there get points for all of them that get destroyed.
Yeah, I don't feel bad when that happens. I'm like, yes, die in
Well,
glory, my warriors.
If you have cards that give you points, you kind
they're-
of want to
you
go in
want
there.
you
and
use
then-
that to your
There are ones
advantage.
that double it. So I've seen people where it's this area that can have 5 people in it, and then they have a card that doubles the glory award from dying in Ragnarok, and it's the last round. So when they die, everything is worth 8 points. Each unit is worth 8 points during the last round, and that, I don't know what that turns out to be, something like 20. Wait, what's 8 times 5?
Times 5?
40.
40.
8 times 5. 40?
Yeah.
40 points? Is that what it is? I don't know if I'm doing the math
This is
right.
why he's a lawyer.
This is why
not
I'm a
math-
lawyer.
That's why he loses all the time. No, you only got 20 points. It's 20 for you.
But if that's 40 points, that's a huge gain right there.
Which we've talked a lot about different strategies, and some seem broken, but that's kind of the epicness of this game. If you let someone kind of just go a direction, you're going to get all upset and be like, oh, that's a broken combo. But you can stop it. You can draft. You can do it yourself.
I can see that as a negative point, though. If you want it a little more, you want to do your thing and you're focused, yet you get forced to kind of do this other thing. Sometimes that can kind of put a damper.
One of the interesting things about the game is some of the cards in the different ages are very similar to each other. So there are cards in the first age, but then there are cards in the second age that are sort of like upgrades to those cards that give you kind of an increased bonus. So if you're watching what other people are doing and the strategies that they're exploiting, like in the second age, you can look at your cards and say, okay, if I deny him this card, it's going to really take a big chunk out of the points he can get in the third age.
At potentially the expense of that other card that fits really well with what you're doing.
Right.
So then you have to weigh. It's like, all right, my thing that I'm doing, is that going to be better than stopping the thing that he's doing? Because I remember Russ, you're like, all right, we need to go take him out here. And I'm like, I think what I'm doing is going to do really well. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'll maybe go in there and just die and let him do his thing. In the long run, by me doing my own thing, worked more than him doing his.
Right.
So it worked, but you got to weigh that.
well, and then you kind of have to pass up the shiny ability, like the cards that look like really interesting monsters and stuff, for straight out battle cards.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
last time we played, I drafted heavy battle cards in some rounds and passed up a lot of things that like intuitively I wanted.
like,
I wanted it, but I was like,
Look how pretty this looks when you
I
just do
know.
that. It's just so awesome.
This guy, every time I see him, I'm like, oh, I want him and I want to make him work, but he's so expensive to put out there. But there was actually a time where I ended up getting this guy, and what he does is when you pillage, you get double the pillage reward. And I had an ability that gave me double the pillage reward, and I ended up pillaging Yggdrasil with him, and he bumped up all of my clan sets by 3 with just 1 pillage. I mean, and it's so fun to do.
I'm always
kind of
tempted
stuff.
with the fire giant, but his cost, but like throwing him down because he kills everything.
Everything but other monsters.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So he kills leaders.
So I'm
and
always like,
mystics and,
I want to put him down, but I can't afford him to make my strategy work. So
I got him the last time we played, I drafted him, and I drafted him, I think, and I didn't put I didn't put either of them out on the board at all, and I was really bummed because I had to discard down to 1 card, and I didn't end up keeping him, and I was like, oh man, I don't know that I recruited maybe 1 monster the last time we played, and you guys each had 2, and I felt left out.
It looks cool, man. Remember the
Dude, they look
first
so
time you
cool.
got this copy after Russ painted it? I didn't even try to win. I'm like, I'm getting as many of these monsters out, man. All right. So before we go, final thoughts on the game.
I love it. I think it's got the visuals of it. It's a beautiful game, and it's really fun. It really checks off a lot of the boxes for a lot of the games that I really like in one game. The drafting, the quests, and the miniatures. It's just all around good.
I really love it. In no small part due to the theme. I love the Viking theme. I love the whole Viking mythology thing. So everything kind of makes sense. You know, you've got Jotunheim and it's all frozen. You got a frost giant here, and the mechanics and the theme fit really well together. People have kind of criticized and said it's like a less complete game of Rising Sun, which came out later.
I actually prefer this over Rising
I
Sun.
I
do-
think they're
I pre-
completely different.
They,
but
they are. They have similar mechanics in a way, but they're completely different games. And what I can be in the mood for both on different occasions, because I mean, Rising Sun is a lot more, like managing your stuff in front of you,
Yeah.
not just putting guys out and trying to make a sweet strategy come together. This feels like more combat, and that's what I dig about it. But they're both really good games. I like this one more mainly because of the theme.
I love this game. That's my favorite designer, and then I just love throwing down the miniatures and having that variable to be like, oh, I want to win battles, but if I don't, I can have a strategy to lose. I would say if you are a Blood Rage fan, if you're looking for games that are similar, a little bit different, Chaos in the Old World or even Cthulhu Wars.
I like
Those
that.
games are ones that I think are more similar than Rising Sun, but
Yeah, they also will cost you more than $100 each. Good job, Russ.
I really liked when we were playing last night too, and Russ was looking at the minis, and he was like, "I don't hate these." Like he was really worried that he was going to look at them and be disappointed with his paint job because this was one of the earlier things that he painted. And he's like, "No, I'm really happy with those." And I'm like, "Good, because you're not getting them back to fix them or anything."
Was it fun to paint?
it was. So I went. If you're watching the video, you can see that the warriors are awash. I told Jared if I was painting my own copy, that this is what I would do. This was a gift for you completing law school.
Yeah.
So it was. I like the way the warriors look on the board, that you're not distracted with, oh, what is that? Because you can tell they're the peon characters. So now I need to get my own copy, which is weird. I think it's really weird that as big an Eric Lang fan as I am, I don't have this game.
It took me forever to get you guys to play this too. I was like, "We need to play Blood Rage. We need to play Blood Rage." And finally I went out and bought it, and I was like, "We need to play Blood Rage." And it took a while to actually get it to the table, but I'm glad that we've gotten it to the table as many times as we have.
I wish I could pay $75 for the Kickstarter.
That would have been great.
It's a bit
much good
around
stuff.
500 now. I was looking about 500 for
Someday,
everything.
someday.
Just slightly
Yeah, all the
tempted
Not
Kickstarters.
to do
painted.
that, you know, almost hit that bid button. Almost. All right, guys. Thank you so much for talking about Blood Rage, and thank you guys at home for watching. We want to know what you guys think about Blood Rage, or if you have any questions about it. Like I said, Jared has so many plays of this that he probably could answer your questions easily off the bat. You can do that by sending us an email at theplaythru@ktdata.net, or leave it in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/theplaythru. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Playthru.